Fair warning, today's show is completely for the birds. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Thursday night, April 16th. I knew it was going to happen. That night, there was a big moon. The light breeze was from the south. We were approaching the third weekend in April. I knew that the first pine warbler of the season would be in that night and start singing for the trees the next morning. Sure enough, he did. Within 2 days, my yard was full of songs of palm warblers and ruby-crowned kinglets. A couple of yellow-rump warblers joined the chorus. Yellow-bellied sapsuckers from every direction were trying to outdrum each other in a quest for mates and breeding territory. Just like they do every year, they all flooded back in at once. But this year, you've got more chances than ever to get out there and see what you've been missing. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Dysarts, EBS, Doors Equipment, and Napa Auto Parts. Maine is the most heavily forested state in the nation. Maine is the transition zone between the hardwood forest of the Appalachians and the softwood forest of Canada. Maine is the transition zone between the sandy beaches of Middle America and the rock-bound coast of the north. Maine is where the 45th parallel runs right through the heart of the state. We are the temperate zone. As a result, we've got a lot of birds. Slowly, we're all waking up to the fact that Maine is one of the best places in the nation to see and hear birds. Many of our birds go south in the winter, sure, but they're just biding their time down there, waiting to get back here. They don't sing down there, they don't flirt with each other, they don't raise kids. That all happens right here, right now. This actually goes like clockwork. The first returning migrants actually arrive early, in mid-March. The first songbirds start to show up in mid-April, and by this weekend, the remaining songbirds start flooding in. They'll sing and romance each other for the next 8 weeks, and then start to get real quiet. By mid-August, the early birds will start heading south again. That gives us a short time every spring to get out and take advantage of what the rest of the country wishes they had. Birding is one of the fastest growing outdoor activities in America. There are a bunch of reasons. For one thing, many of us have gotten a little bit older, and the thrill of whitewater rafting, mountain climbing, long-distance biking has given way to other hobbies that are a little easier on the knees. Also, birding has gotten easier. More people feed birds, bringing them right to the window. Binoculars have gotten better and cheaper. There are dozens of field guides to help with identification. There are even books to tell you where to go. I know. I wrote one. The Official Guide to the Maine Birding Trail. There are more organized opportunities to learn birds, and that's what today's show is all about. There are walks, there are festivals, there are tours. Whatever speed you want to go, there is something for you right around the corner. So let's start really local. Maine Audubon has a wide mission to protect wildlife, but it is particularly known for birds. The statewide organization has 7 chapters, including the Fundy chapter in Washington County, the Down East chapter in Hancock County, and the Penobscot Valley chapter. For the last several years, the Penobscot Valley chapter has been offering morning bird walks in May. Those are just about to start. You might want to grab your calendar and a pencil, but all of these walks are online at maineaudubon.org/PVC. These Bangor area walks are from 7 to 8:30 in the morning. Be prepared for wet grass and occasional muddy conditions, and please, no pets. Next Friday, May 8th, is a warm-up day. With the birds just arriving, often overnight, the first morning walk happens at the Penobscot County Conservation Association in Brewer and extends along the Indian Trail. Meet at 7 a.m. in the Conservation Association parking lot. This time of year, there are often still ducks in the Penobscot River and swallows over the river. Some of our more common warblers are in the trees, and sparrows are in the grasses. There should be some woodpeckers around, and it might give you a chance to solve a mystery. I'm often asked about which woodpecker that is that likes to bang on metal. The culprit is a yellow-bellied sapsucker. He wants to be heard as far away as he can. They're also unusual in another way. Most woodpeckers drum a steady beat. Sapsuckers don't. It's uneven and peters out at the end. Next Saturday is particularly interesting because May 9th is International Migratory Bird Day. Truth is, picking one day as the most important day to celebrate migration is kind of a matter of averaging nationwide. A lot of birds are still on their way here, and they're passing over states in the Middle Atlantic region more than they are here. But one of the best places to catch the early birds on Saturday will be at Fields Pond Audubon Center in Holden. As usual, the walk runs from 7 to 8:30. It kicks off a whole morning full of Spring Fest activities, some of which are particularly great for children. About half the warblers will be back and singing from the woodline. Bluebirds and tree swallows will be arguing over the nest boxes. Woodpeckers will be setting up housekeeping in their new holes. Orioles will sneak around the edges of the forest. Swamp sparrows and American bitterns will be in the cattail marsh. So it should be pretty lively. Now, perhaps you've heard an American bittern before and you didn't know what it was. Tuesday, May 12th, if you can only do one walk, this is the one. Meet at Bangor City Forest at 7 a.m. This is site number 68 on the Maine Birding Trail, and it is outstanding. Because the forest has been so well managed for diverse habitat, the songbirds go nuts here. Honestly, I can identify 15 species before I even leave the parking lot. And the roads and trails make it easier to see birds along the open edges of the forest. If you don't believe it, challenge me. Blindfold me and lead me around, and I can still point out at least 40 species without even looking. Winner gets a free beer. I like a nice dark ale. Here's one you're going to hear a lot. It's a ground-dwelling member of the warbler family, an ovenbird, so named because it builds its nest on the forest floor, and it looks a little like a Dutch oven. Wednesday, May 13th, Mount Hope Cemetery in Bangor is the place to meet at 7 a.m. inside the State Street entrance. It's usually a good place for a cardinal or a tufted titmouse, and I'm usually surprised by what happens to be in the little ponds inside the cemetery. Friday, May 15th, start at Cascade Park in Bangor at 7 a.m. You'll be going up through Saxel Park, which are the big fields behind Dorothea Dix. This is a pretty interesting spot. There should be some good warblers along the tree line on the edge of the field. I usually get brown thrashers in there. There are lots of blossoming apple trees and berry bushes back there, which attracts bugs, which attracts songbirds. And the grasslands are full of savanna sparrows and bobolinks. The bobolinks are particularly interesting in courtship because they often sing while they fly, and they're very entertaining. And the best way to describe the song is R2-D2 from Star Wars. Monday, May 18th, meet at the entrance road to Leonard's Mills in Bradley. If you can only do one walk, do this one. You'll probably need some insect repellent. This short road is just about the most predictable bird walk in Maine. Every year, every bird is exactly where it's supposed to be, because this area is the Penobscot Experimental Forest. The habitat changes every few hundred yards. And every time the habitat changes, the birds change. It's a little over a mile to walk from Route 178 to Leonard's Mills, and most of that is through young forest. Then you get up to the parking lot, and it's a bunch of old, tall trees, a more mature forest with its own set of very special warblers, flycatchers, and thrushes. And just before you get there, you pass over a wetland and under the power lines, and you can't help but see swamp sparrows and common yellowthroats. Pay attention to that spot because the cattails are hiding more American bitterns and maybe even Virginia rails, which get pretty vocal in the spring and sound like pigs. Wednesday, May 20th, it's back to Bangor City Forest. And then Thursday, May 21st, it'll be Essex Woods. If you can only do one walk, do this one. It meets at 7 in the morning in the parking lot at the end of Watchmaker Street off Essex Street. It's the top of the sliding hill in Bangor. The walk starts through the woods, where there's a good assortment of warblers, thrushes, woodpeckers, and flycatchers. Then the path skirts around the big wetland at the bottom of the hill. Even though it's right next to the highway, it has an amazing assortment of birds. Lots of ducks, herons, rails, swallows, kingbirds, orioles, catbirds, warblers, vireos, and wrens. If you're lucky, you might even hear one of the secretive sora. Friday, May 22nd, a morning walk will explore part of the Caribou Bog. Meet at 7 a.m. in the Trailhead parking lot on Taylor Road off Forest Avenue in Bangor. I have no idea where they're going or what they'll find because I only go in there in winter on skis. If they really do get back into the bog area, there could be some interesting birds back there. I'm thinking northern forest specialties like spruce grouse and blackback woodpecker. But most likely they'll settle for easy walking and lots of warblers. On Saturday, May 23rd, another walk meets in Orono at 7 a.m. This one will wander around the Technology Park next to the Black Bear Inn, right near the Stillwater exit from I-95. There's some open fields, some wetlands, some low trees, all bunched up in a tight little area, so bobolinks, vireos, and waterfowl are possible. You'll certainly get one of the most abundant warblers in Maine, the common yellowthroat. Tuesday, May 26th, Audubon and the Bangor Land Trust team up at 7 a.m. for a walk in the West Penjajawak Preserve. That's at the dead end of Fox Hollow Lane off Essex Street in Bangor. It's another place where bobolinks, swallows, and sparrows put on a good show, and I never seem to visit the place without picking up a hawk or two. The next day, May 27th, the bird walks wrap up with a walk along the Kanduska Stream. Meet in the second parking lot upstream of the intersection of Valley Avenue and Bruce Road. Now it's time to take it to a whole new level. There are 3 birding festivals along the coast. These go for multiple days and pull in some of the top experts in Maine to help guide them. You're going to learn a lot in a weekend and see a lot. I easily top 100 birds at one of those festivals. Details are coming up as Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine continues on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Right now, right this minute, birds are returning for the summer. And since humans can make a festival out of anything, there are 3 coming up. The first is in Deer Isle, Stonington over the weekend of May 15th through 17th. It's called Wings, Waves, and Woods. I'll lead some of the walks and be a spotter on a couple of the boat trips, including a puffin cruise. Ann Beards is more famous for her Nervous Nellies jams and jellies, but she's a festival organizer, and she's right here. Welcome back, Ann.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Wings, Waves, Woods Festival is now going into 8th year?
It is the 9th, I believe.
Geez, time flies. They grow up so fast.
Indeed.
Yeah. This one is different. This one is described as birding by land, by sea, and by art. That is so Deer Isle, Stonington.
Well, exactly, because there are so many artists and craftspeople here on the island, and it's a chance for people to basically explore the island with birding as a basis for that, because there's nothing better than getting outside this time of year. So we have incorporated the art side of culture here as well as birding.
Yeah, I think the point of this festival is to really kick off the Deer Isle, Stonington area's summer season. It comes earlier than most tourists, and even some of the local summer residents come back. And so it just makes a convenient kickoff as the migrant birds are returning too.
Exactly. And we don't want to compete time-wise, schedule-wise with other festivals, and we rather enjoy being the first festival in Maine.
Well, it's got some advantages because it's got some unique features to it that no other festival really has. You want me to give you 3?
Sure.
All right. Since I guide for all the festivals and help plan some of them, I have a pretty good idea what makes this one interesting and unique. And the first one is it's the earliest. Usually comes the weekend before Memorial Day weekend, and so a lot of the winter seabirds are still present. At the same time, the migrants are coming in, so you kind of get a twofer.
Exactly.
And I think the second thing is boat trips. More boat trips on this festival than I think any other festival offers. And you go to Swans Island. We'll go up the thoroughfare through Isle of Ho. There are 2 trips on 2 different boats out to Seal Island for puffins. None of the other festivals really kind of match that boat opportunity.
Yeah. We have 2 great boat operators that give us a lot of options, and to my amazement, the trip out to Matinica Seal Island for the puffins and pelagics pretty much fills up every year, both trips each weekend. So there seems to be an untapped demand for that kind of a trip, and we're glad to continue it.
I love that particular island. Every one of the puffin islands along the coast are a little bit different. There are 5 altogether, And we don't get out to Matinicus Rock very much, but the other four get quite a bit of visitation. Seal Island is just a little further out, and it's a little more unique in terms of the birds that are out there. It's got great cormorants, which is about the southern nesting colony that I know of in the eastern United States. So that one's different, and the adventure to get out there and the scenery is a little different, too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, the third thing I think is this one is really a more local festival because it is just kicking off the local season. You're not trying to draw birders from Minnesota.
My ambition with this is to get more Mainers outside and looking at birds and looking at their surroundings and learning about what's going on this time of year in our collective habitat. So I'm thrilled when families want to come up from Portland or come for the day from Bangor. That's perfect. And with this festival, you can go on one walk or you can fill up your weekend and go on a dozen different activities.
Yeah.
Either way works.
That's, I think, the beauty of this festival is it's cheap and it's a la carte. So you just pick what works for you.
Exactly.
Now, some of the highlights include checking bluebird nest boxes. There's a night walk that will listen to woodcock and potentially owls. You have a chance to watch nesting eagles. I think Birdsacre's coming over for an owl program.
Exactly. They bring some of their live owls and do a kind of a talk and a demonstration. We've got a shorebird walk. We have a really special walk that I think you did last year on a piece of private property that has just about every habitat you can have here on the island. So we saw a lot of birds on that walk. And there is an annual art exhibit Friday evening every year, and that's taking place at the Pearson Legacy Gallery. And we usually pick the poster art for the coming year out of the artwork that's exhibited at that show, so that's always fun.
And that's not the only artistic things going on. You've got at least one or two other workshops?
No, there are several. My husband, Peter Bieritz, makes found object art, and he does a talk each year that's always very popular, describing how he goes about that. And he makes a lot of birds and a lot of creatures, turtles, lizards. So he talks about how he looks at found art or found objects, usually old pieces of metal, things he finds at the dump. He literally goes to the dump just about every day. So that's one of them. And Siri Beckman, who did the poster art this year, is going to do a woodcut demo at her studio on Sunday. And that's kind of a rare opportunity. I don't see her doing those very often. And woodcuts or woodcut, that's what you call it, is what she really is known for. And she has a really beautiful studio. So that is a special opportunity, too.
Well, and if you say the name Ann Bieritz, a lot of people are going to say, "Hey, isn't that Nervous Nellie's Jams and Jellies?"
That's true. And I have my binoculars on hand even today, just seeing what's coming through here. It's still a little early, but we're backed up against a mature spruce forest here, so there are always kinglets, and then the rest of Nervous Nellie's is sited on an old orchard meadow area. So we really have an opportunity for a lot of different birds even right here.
Now, Mother's Day weekend, you've actually got something coming up special at Nervous Nellie's. You want to tell me about it?
That's our official opening day, is Sunday, Mother's Day. We open at least by Mother's Day every year, and on that day offer free coffee and homemade scone to all moms that come through. So that's kind of our kickoff weekend for the season, and the following weekend, Wings, Waves, and Woods constitutes the first weekend for a lot of other businesses. I know a number of galleries are going to be open for the start of the season, like the Turtle Gallery and Pearson Legacy, which actually they're open year-round. Mm-hmm. And I know that people have been booking reservations at inns here on the island. Last I heard, there was only one room left at the Inn on the Harbor, and so it seems like a pretty busy year. People should look into making reservations if they want to stay overnight.
Well, winter took so long that I think people are just anxious to get out and do something.
Yes, yes.
Coming up, we'll give you the links for more information as Ann Bieritz and I continue the discussion about the Wings, Waves, Woods Birding Festival that's on the way in 2 weeks. Then we'll take a look at 2 more birding festivals that are right behind it. As birding continues to grow in popularity, so do the opportunities to learn and improve skills and find more about wildlife that was under your nose the whole time. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Saturday mornings at 9, Sunday mornings at 8 on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. On today's show, we're looking at all the opportunities to see birds and birding places that you didn't even know were there. When all the songbirds come back in May, they are dressed in their most colorful feathers, hoping to attract a mate. They erupt in a chorus of natural music. 3 multi-day festivals have been organized to make it easier to enjoy this natural phenomenon. Ann Bieritz helped organize the first one, which is called Wings, Waves, Woods in Deer Isle, Stonington. It's coming up in a couple of weeks. Island Heritage Trust is handling registrations, right, Ann?
Yes, that's the kind of headquarters for all questions and registration. And their phone number is area 207-348-2455. You can also go to their website, which is islandheritagetrust.org, and there's a full schedule of the weekend on the homepage there, so you can get information online as well. DeerIsle.com is the Chamber of Commerce website, and that would be a place to scope out accommodations and other island offerings.
Yep, so best thing to do probably is just Google, because no one's ever going to remember this listening to a radio show. The phone number, I've already forgotten the phone number. But Island Heritage Trust is, who's handling it. Deer Isle, of course, and the Chamber of Commerce. That would be to look up for the schedule of all the events going on there.
Yes, yes.
Now, basic fee is just $25 a person, which, of course, is dirt cheap. There's a little extra for boat trips and the birders' dinner because you got to pay for the supper and art workshops. But aside from that, just for a small amount of money, you can sample anything you want at this festival.
Exactly. And I don't want to miss mentioning Mark McCullough, who is an endangered species biologist, will be giving our Saturday evening talk, and he'll be focusing on endangered Maine birds. So most people know him through his artwork or possibly his books. He's written many books on Maine wildlife, but he also did the artwork for the loon and chickadee license plate. So that's how most people know Mark McCullough, even if they don't know his name.
Yeah, it turns out a lot of people own his art and didn't know it.
Exactly.
My thanks to Ann Bieritz, who helps organize the Wings, Waves, Woods Birding Festival in the Deer Isle, Stonington area. She's been my guest over the last few minutes. 1 week after that festival, another one happens over Memorial Day weekend, the Downey Spring Birding Festival. It's in the Cobscook Bay area, headquartered at the Cobscook Community Learning Center, and it partners with the Moosehead National Wildlife Refuge. You can get information at downeastbirdfest.org. downeastbirdfest.org. I'll repeat that later. I've never missed this festival. There's a cluster of state parks, wildlife refuges, land trusts, and ocean edges all around the Lubec area. The birding is fantastic. I do it year-round in the region. One of the guides for the festival is Chris Bartlett. He lives year-round in the area and works for Sea Grant and Cooperative Extension Service as a marine biologist. Welcome to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine, Chris.
Thanks for having me, Bob.
Sure. This is the 12th annual Downey Spring Birding Festival. I was on the very first walk of the very first festival. I can't believe that was 12 years ago now. When did you start to get involved? I forget.
I think it's been about 9 years for me. I started as a guide for Eastport walks at Shackford Head, and just enjoyed the camaraderie of the people that were interested in bird life in the Down East area, and so I became more engaged over time. And now, look, I'm helping with, I think, 5 guided trips this year.
Yeah, I think you're doing more than I am. We're both on the planning committee, so I don't need you to tell me what we're doing, but why is Down East better than anywhere else on the planet?
Well, I have to say it's a pretty special region if you're a birder, because we can have both the offshore pelagic birds such as Atlantic puffins and razorbills, common murres, Arctic and common terns, alongside boreal species that typically you only find far north of where we're at, but because we have this cool coastal climate, we find things such as spruce grass and boreal chickadee, and there's nowhere else that I know of along the New England shore where you can get a combination of those wonderful types of species in one day. That's what makes it special for me.
I couldn't agree with you more. That's why I probably bird down east as much as I do anywhere. It's a transition zone. You're going from essentially what's southern U.S. to northern Canada, really, and the dividing line is pretty fine, and it's right there in the Lubec area.
It really is, as I mentioned, a fantastic place, and it's still very rural. You know, it hasn't been developed, so you find yourself in the middle of wilderness areas just outside of town. And there's, again, that for me, it really makes it great because it doesn't take you half a day to get to where you want to go. You're already in the middle of it. Yeah.
As you and I both know, this is absolutely rural Maine, so if you want a guide in the area, you got to know two things. Where are the birds, where are the bathrooms?
That's exactly right, Bob.
When the festival first started, there was a prize for most species found, but it was discontinued after a couple of years because I kept winning.
Unfair advantage as a guide, I think.
It seemed kind of unfair, and actually after the first year or two, I said, no, don't count us. We bird there so often we know where everything is, but I mean, it's a fantastic place to go. It starts on Friday, May 22nd with a puffin trip to Machias Seal Island. I always rate that as the number one birding experience in all of Maine, if you want to count that little piece of disputed Canada.
It really is awe-inspiring, and I'll actually be helping with that trip this year. And like you, I look forward to it every year. There's no place that I've ever been along the coast of New England where you're surrounded by thousands of these seabirds that you typically can't see from the mainland shore, all coming to Machias Seal Island to breed and nest. It's really spectacular.
Yeah, they are so close. You can't quite touch them because they won't let you, but you can pretty much spit on them.
And they put you inside of a blind, and you can hear the pattering of their feet just inches above your head.
Yeah, and that actually kicks off the festival. That's the very first thing that happens on Friday, May 22nd. So when you start off with that big a bang, you can imagine the rest of the festival is pretty good. At 1 o'clock that Friday afternoon, I'll do my famous birding by ear lecture. I actually got inspired to put that show together because of the first Down East Spring Birding Festival I went to. It was fun to walk around with people who were really excited about birding but didn't know what they were hearing. And I said I got to do something about that.
Well, and your talk really gets people to think about not only seeing birds but listening to birds as well. And as you are teaching many of us, it opens up a whole other dynamic for your nature experience.
Well, on the other hand, it's also made me incredibly lazy because I don't even bother to look anymore.
Do those count?
Northern Parula, it's one of the most pretty warblers we have, and I don't even bother to look. You're listening to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Chris Bartlett is my guest on this part of today's show. He lives down east and guides for the Down East Spring Birding Festival, which happens every Memorial Day weekend. A few more tidbits about this festival coming up, and then we'll visit a third festival, the Acadia Birding Festival, which is the oldest, the biggest, and just 4 weeks away. This is Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. This is Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket with Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Spring is here, the grass is riz, I wonder where the birdies is. It used to be called just bird watching. That best describes an activity where the birds do all the work and you just watch. Nowadays, it's a whole lot more active. Well over 300 birds can be found in Maine. Each one has its own niche, its own habits, its own season. The art of figuring out what they are and where they are is now the art we call birding. And birding has become so popular that festivals are now organized around this outdoor activity. Memorial Day weekend is always the weekend for the Down East Spring Birding Festival. I guide for it. Chris Bartlett is my guest right now, and he is also one of the guides. One of the trips I do, Chris, is an all-day van trip when I take a bunch of people to all of my favorite spots, my secret spots in the Lubec area for a whole day. Do you have any secret spots that you'd rather not share? And if so, where are they?
Yeah, but you'd have to pay me for that one, Bob.
Thought I could sneak that one by.
You know, one of the benefits of a festival like this is that you get really experienced guides like yourself that show you the birds that you're seeking, where you likely would have a less of an opportunity to find them on your own. I know you spend countless hours finding those secret locations and then leading guests to them in hopes that they're not bringing all their friends back.
My challenge is I'm just going to find more secret places. I'm a geek that way. I get excited about finding birds, but I'm even more excited about finding locations, and there aren't that many people that nuts.
Well, I don't know of anyone that knows of so many secret locations for boreal species along the down east coast. You've certainly got all of us beat on that.
Well, you, on the other hand, have a boat, and you get to go to the channel between Campobello and Eastport. I think that is one of the wonders of the world. When you see, I don't know, YouTube videos or nature videos of famous places with sea life on the planet, they all compare to what's available right there between the U.S. and Canada in the channel.
Oh, you're absolutely right. The staging sea birds and shorebirds in South Lubec as well during the later summer months is simply breathtaking. You can be around tens of thousands of gulls just a mile offshore here off of the Eastport Harbor, and you're immersed in it, like you say, like you're in a National Geographic special. Well,
I mean, black-legged kittiwakes. I think the southernmost place that they nest is right there.
It is on White Horse Island.
Yeah.
And you can see those nests during the Downey Spring Birding Festival. We do take a trip out and keep a respectable distance so that we're not disturbing the birds, but so that we can see these northern nesting small gulls right in our backyard.
And while you're doing that, you get minke whales sort of swimming around.
That's right. And the charter boats that take us out are very familiar with the local minke whales. We typically have 6 to 8 this summer in this region, and they can tell them apart by their dorsal fins. So they have them all named and can tell you how long they've been around and some of the places that they like to frequent. It's pretty
I can
that way.
remember bread knife. I remember that's one whale name.
That's right, and gonzo is another young female that likes to breach. So you typically think of, say, humpback whales breaching, but this little minke will breach 30, 40 times in a row if you're lucky to catch her at it.
Yeah, she's weird because minkies don't breach that often, but she does.
I dare say she might enjoy it. Yeah. But it's hard to say. But
now, for locals, let's say you're from the Bangor area, if you're from even the coast, let's say Ellsworth or Bar Harbor, what do they get out of going to this festival?
Well, again, because it is such a special region, if you're in Bangor, you still may not get to see the birds that we get to see on a routine basis in our backyard because you have the boreal species and the offshore pelagic species of birds like the puffins. Plus, you have all these expert guides that can show you exactly where they are. So for me, it's what a wonderful day trip or weekend trip for people within Maine to come down and experience that with their friends and family.
Yeah, honestly, you go to the Eastland Motel, you put yourself up for a night, you go out with experts, and you see everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you have so much fun, you keep coming back year after year.
And they do. I mean, of all the festivals I attend, I think this one has more regulars than any other festival because it's different every time, and the camaraderie's good, and the area cannot be beat.
And I'm glad you mentioned the camaraderie because the folks that come back every year and really enjoy themselves, it really has become a gathering of friends each year. You look forward to seeing folks that you only get to see during the festival, and they're here camping out or staying in local lodging for a week and enjoying just the heritage of the area as much as it is the natural wildlife, too.
Well, speaking of that, I will see you in 3 weeks, Chris.
Looking forward to it, Bob.
Chris Bartlett lives, works, and guides down east. We both help plan and lead the Downey Spring Birding Festival. The Acadia Birding Festival comes 1 week later, and we'll talk about that next. But for anybody who really wants a rich birding experience, there are even tours in Maine that go all over. I've been putting together tours for about a decade, going to all of my favorite places. And last year I teamed up with the Schoodic Institute at the Schoodic Education and Research Center to do some more extended tours to some of the more hidden places in Maine. We go up into the Maine North Woods, we go up the coast, and we even go out to sea. And these are not the only tours in Maine. What was once called Elder Hostel is now called Road Scholars, and they bring several tours to Maine. Field Guides is an international birding company, and they bring groups into Maine every year. My old friend Eric Hines leads that one. The last time I saw Eric, I bumped into him in the Denver airport as we were both starting birding expeditions in Colorado. All the information about birding in Maine has been collected online in one spot, MaineBirdingTrail.com. MaineBirdingTrail.com. For festivals and tours, or for info on do-it-yourself birding adventures around the state, it's all right there. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Welcome back to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Today's show is for the birds. Right now is when the major spring migration happens. A gajillion birds are flocking to and through Maine, and it's the ideal time for nature lovers to get out and enjoy the spectacle. 3 birding festivals have made that easier. We've talked about 2 of them so far in today's show. Here's the third, the Acadia Birding Festival, which is coming up at the end of the month. It is headquartered at the fire station in Somesville. Becky Marvel is executive director. Welcome aboard, Becky.
Well, thank you.
The Acadia Birding Festival is like the granddaddy of birding festivals in Maine. I'm forgetting how long it's now been operating.
Oh, my goodness. I think about 17 years is what we're into now.
Yeah, I knew it was 16, maybe 17, just because it has been kicking around for a while, and it just seems to get bigger and better every year, and I don't know how you're doing it.
Well, we get keynotes that are bigger and better known, and plus it brings in a lot of people from previous years that have had a good time, so we get a lot of repeats.
Well, anybody who is used to birding and reads a lot of bird magazine articles or gets guidebooks would recognize the name Ken Kaufman. I don't know if there's anybody on the planet who is more famous than Ken.
Yeah, he's a really good person to get, and his wife, Kimberly, they're both very dynamic people, really into doing these birding festivals and promoting birding in general, both of them, very much so.
So anyone who actually goes on a walk or a talk with Ken Kaufman is going to leave there wide-eyed with the amount of information they can gather just spending a few minutes with a guy.
That's so true. He is incredibly knowledgeable. He's been birding since he was a little kid, written numerous books and field guides, many of which we will have for sale at the festival, and his signature on them.
Well, the Acadia Birding Festival is the last weekend of May, which is actually unusual because it would normally be the first weekend of June. It's just a weird calendar year.
It is a weird calendar year. For the last several years, it's spanned both months. Now we're in just May because we're always right after Memorial Day. Next year, in 2016, we will be all in June.
Yeah. Going a little bit early could make this festival a little bit different than some of the previous ones in terms of some of the winter birds may still be lingering. When you do the boat trips, you might see purple sandpipers that'll be gone within days after the festival ends. So it'll be a unique festival this year, I think.
That's true. That's true. There are some birds that will probably not have arrived yet, but others that are lingering on. I think the warblers and all the land birds are going to be just perfect that time of year. So.
Yeah. A lot of those seabirds that will be coming up from the southern Atlantic probably won't have arrived yet, so we'll be pushing our luck there. But that's the adventure. You never know what's going to happen.
That is true, and we'll search high and low for whatever we can find out there.
Now, because of its size, and this is a much bigger festival than anywhere else in Maine, this one's got everything. It's got a lot of concurrent trips that all go at once. You go to some festivals, they got 1, 2, 3 things going on. In this case, there could be 4 or 5 or even 6 different options on any part of any day. That's
correct. It's actually more like 8 or 9 options for some of the mornings and some of the afternoons. And I monitor the schedule, and as events fill up, I will add another event if I can find guides for that event, so that more people can come and we can distribute them out to different locations and nobody will feel crowded at all.
Well, once again, because this is probably the signature birding event in the entire state of Maine, you draw a lot of really high qualified guides. Some of the names that show up are, the average person in Maine isn't necessarily going to know these people, but I do. And it's like a who's who list of quality people.
Yes, it is wonderful. And we even capitalize on some of the vendors that come to the festival, such as Wildside Nature Tours. Kevin Laughlin, who owns and runs that company, he is bringing 5 of his best guides, and one of them is coming all the way from Ecuador.
Wow.
Yep. And that'll be just wonderful. And I put those guides with somebody who's a local guide who knows the trip, but these people will know the birds, too. And they see them in the wintertime when we don't have them, a lot of the warblers, so that'll be really nice.
This should be an interesting experience for them, because you take something like, this is just between us birders, the average person listening to the show may not know what we're talking about, but a chestnut-sided warbler in winter doesn't look anything like what they look like up here when they breed. And so you get somebody from the tropics who sees a chestnut-sided warbler up here and they say, huh?
Right. And they don't get to hear the birds singing down there so much, so it'll be fun for them to come up here and hear them singing and nesting.
Well, folks ought to hurry, because the festival is not that far away now, and a lot of the trips are limited in size, and they are filling fast. But as you say, as demand demands, you can have more trips.
Yes, that is very true. And I've already, probably in the last few weeks, I've already added 3 or 4 more trips than I originally had on the schedule. So there's been a lot of interest, and we do the best to accommodate everybody.
Well, the key thing is to keep the trip small enough that the guides can really give attention to everybody, and that's one of the things the Acadia Birding Festival is particularly good at.
We do indeed, and many of the trips there will only be 12 people on the trip with 2 guides. Some of the other trips may go up to as many as 20, and then I'll have 4 guides on the trip, so there will always be somebody that you can attach yourself to if you're a participant, and learn a lot about the birds and not feel that it's too crowded.
Well, this festival does keep growing. Do you think there's an upper limit?
Well, we are limited a little bit by Festival Center, where we currently have it, and where the vendors will be, and where we will serve lunches and have evening appetizers and presentations. But so far, we've been in a good place, and around 300 people or so seems like a good number, and if we get bigger than that, then we'll find another venue.
Well, on top of that, we keep expanding off the island. It's no longer limited to Acadia National Park and the environs there. It's really spreading up the coast. You've got pre- and post-trips that go all over the place. So not only is the festival getting longer and more popular, but it's getting lengthier.
It is, indeed, and I've noticed in the past that people are really wanting to do these pre- and post-trips because it gives them a whole day to do, whether it's all down east or to Saddleback Mountain to get Bicknell's thrush, and it doesn't mess up them wanting to do all the things at Festival Center that are happening on Mount Desert Island, so they can do both. And eventually we may add more pre-trips and post-trips.
It just kills me not to be able to do one of those pre-trips this year, because the last few years I've been doing one of the pre-trips to get as many birds as possible down east in one day. And so we hit all my favorite spots, and because I'm in the legislature this year, I got to miss it for a year.
I know, and we're going to miss you sorely.
It just kills me. Well,
yes.
For a local person who can do Acadia anytime they want to, it really is the lectures and the quality of experts that make this an interesting local opportunity.
That's right. We have some fantastic guides, and so even if you get out on the island and know a lot of the spots, you will still learn a lot from these guides that are just incredibly knowledgeable.
Well, now, how much does it cost, and how do people register?
Well, you pay per event, and you can register online. There's a schedule, and it will tell you all the different events, and they range anywhere from about $20 for a 3 to 4 hour walk to, if there's a celebrity birder or one of our keynotes on the walk, it's a little bit more expensive, up to maybe $40. And we also have the pelagic trip that goes out of Bar Harbor on the Friendship 5. That costs about, I think it's $85, and that's for 4 hours out on the boat, which is wonderful.
That runs over to get the puffins, too.
That's correct. We go to Petite Manan. We often go down to Mount Desert Rock, and we also search for all the birds in between those two locations.
And once again, how do people register?
So they go online to acadiabirdingfestival.com and look for, there's a Register Now button, and that will lead you through all the steps.
Well, great. Once again, I'll be guiding, I think, the Boreal big trips to go up the coast, because that's like my favorite area to go cover. So we'll be seeing each other very soon.
Yes, and we're so happy that you're still able to do the weekend trips, Bob.
Yeah, that's because I have no life. And that's Becky Marvel, who directs the Acadia Birding Festival. For the list of morning bird walks, go to MaineAudubon.org/PVC. 4 festivals and tours start at MaineBirdingTrail.com. To share the show with others, start at 929theticket.com. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Dysarts, EBS, Doors Equipment, and Napa Auto Parts. Join me again next Saturday morning at 9 or Sunday morning at 8. Sports Radio 929 The Ticket.